Spooky.
What happened?
My camera's showing me not there. It's picking up my mic, but it's showing the room all lit up and like from a minute ago.
That is spooky. Are you here?
Yeah, you're there.
But are you here? Ew, dude.
I don't like that.
I don't like it at all.
See if I can fix it.
Can they hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, everybody. It's Greg from the past.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm actually here, I think. God, switch it to my camera. Make sure I'm still here, Greg. Oh, God. Okay, I'm still here. We're good. We're good. I'm still here, everybody. I can't say as much for Greg.
That was really weird and uncomfortable. Am I back? I'm not back.
Yeah, you don't seem to be back from...
Uh-oh.
What? Yeah, you might have to reset your camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, well, we'll deal with this in a second. Ugh. What an awful way to start the show.
I mean, I still think you look handsome.
Yeah, the source is still showing the camera too, like the camera like it was. Oh. Oh.
Did you get it?
I think. Maybe. Yeah. Good enough. Good enough. All right. Yikes. Yikes, yikes. Oh, no, I wonder if it's going to be like... it's like that on the other one, too. Shit. This is the worst. This is the absolute worst. Yep. Sorry, guys.
A little technical difficulties never killed anybody. We're here. We're hanging out. We're all enjoying ourselves. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Oh, it's going to be like that on all of them. I'm sure of it.
100%. If you reset the camera.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sucks.
It's all right, Greg. Just gonna handle a little business in front of the business.
Yeah.
And, we'll be all right.
Yes, you guys just bear with me for a minute while I figure this out.
D-Town, what up? Chris said, shoot the J. Shoot it.
Yeah, right now, Chris.
Let us get the camera fixed.
Come on, Chris.
Also, maybe if you get a second to mute the mics and tell me the password to this computer.
Yeah. Yes, happy Tuesday, Wisco. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm sorry that I'm such a dumpster fire right now. I am working on this, I promise.
You're more like you haven't made it to dumpster fire, like smoldering pile of trash.
That's... What are you, the person that wrote that in all of my yearbooks?
How you know that? My handwriting's very distinct.
It sounded suspiciously familiar. I think that's all of them.
Dear smoldering pile of trash.
Yeah, that should be... Yeah, it looks like everything.
Keep in touch this summer.
See, VRM, it might be the feds because, you know what, let's...
Got some shit going on. Got some shit going on. Got some shit going on.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Got some shit going on. Okay, yeah, this is good enough. This is a good place to start. Welcome back to the Church of Hella, or Hella Greg Live, hey. Part of the Super Network. You can tell I have Jesse with me.
I'm Jesse.
I am with him.
I am with him. I can confirm that now. He is here both to my eyes and to the cameras.
So that shoot the J is Jesse doing a hook shot. So that's not even my shoot the J. Yeah, no, you're good right there.
Oh, the damn ceiling, man.
It's the ceiling. It's that Skytown deep. Oh my gosh. All of that on camera.
It's the worst, dude. That's why I ran cross country. I know my fat ass doesn't really show that now, but.
So yes. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Just please, at this point, I'm just gonna go crawl into a hole and don't even worry about me.
Don't look for me.
Cromulent Jesse in some places.
Good enough. Yes, D-Town, I did see that they cracked the cipher for the Zodiac. I also saw a meme that said, I like to think that there's an old man shuffling around his nursing home right now talking about how they finally cracked his cipher. And the nurse, as the nurse says, yes, Mr. Johnson, and leads him back to bed.
They're talking about me again.
You know, that was me.
Back in my day, to get to a murder, you had to walk uphill both ways in the snow.
With a bag on your head.
And a flashlight tied to a pistol.
Murder's not funny. But it's a little funny.
Yeah, I mean, like...
The victims aren't funny.
When is it funny?
When is murder funny?
No, I mean, like, how long can it be? Like, this seems like long enough we can be satirical about the things that happen.
I think it's okay after the victims have lived, like, are past the point of where they would have lived.
So it's not okay yet.
I don't know.
They've been in, like, their 60s.
Yeah, they've had a good run.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. Yes, thank you everybody for watching. Who's probably still around, hopefully. On YouTube. If you're, tomorrow, the podcast tomorrow, if you're listening there, appreciate
Maybe
you.
That's where you were at the beginning of the show.
I was in tomorrow.
Yeah.
On YouTube.
Just posting it to YouTube.
Yeah, weird time warp at the beginning. I didn't like that.
We didn't even do the song from Rocky Horror Picture Show or anything.
I know. Not yet, anyway. Also, yeah, Jesse, I meant to ask you.
How goes it? It goes. That was me.
Is it weird hearing your voice ask you questions?
No, I do it every single night. Why are you such an idiot?
The future is now. Yeah, visit hellagregLIVE.com. There's a puzzle on there. You can win stickers. I have the stickers now. I have big stickers. I have smaller stickers. I have OG stickers. I have
OG, triple OG.
New G stickers. And then I have some limited edition holographic hellagregLIVE stickers. So go to the merch shop, solve puzzles, win stickers, do dope things. I believe in you. Chat it up in the chat here. Get involved. You can call in. You can chat in. Try and get everybody covered. This is gonna be a big episode, so I'm trying to get all like the fun stuff out of the way now because it's gonna be one.
You mean we're not gonna be having fun after this?
It'll be fun.
Come on.
It'll be fun for one person and one person alone, and you'll know who it is when we get there.
Can I guess now?
Go ahead.
You?
No. No, this has not been fun for me. You know how paranoid I've been lately.
I do.
The messages I've been sending you at strange hours. It's just, like, stranger than normal.
In our relationship, there are no hours that are strange, I must say.
That's true. So yeah. Oh yeah, no, I got stickers all day. The holographic one is by far my favorite.
It is really cool.
Yeah. So,
that's why I took some.
Bolo for more. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and jump right into this now that I've wasted enough of your time. Regardless of whether you're ready or not. So fucking
you're excited, dude.
I don't know if
I've
excited.
actually never really seen you stumble over words. Like
I don't know if I'm excited or if I'm just kind of at the end of my rope.
So let me ask you this, because I know this is most likely going to be a 2-part.
No,
it is. Oh, we're just going for it.
I'm just gonna hammer this one. This one's gonna be one, man. This is
this is the first time hearing this can be one guy. So this means, yeah, we are in for it.
For the last week, I've been saying, I'm gonna do this in 2 parts. When I get to 22 pages, I'm gonna cut it in half. I didn't. So you're getting 22 unabridged pages straight from my brain, single space, size 11 font.
I'll be sitting here quietly.
So, yeah, call in 805-666-2513. Get in on the chat. Do all that shit.
Also, don't forget to mention, in the Cromulent Gang Discord, if you're already a part of it, make sure you are getting the proper role from Greg or myself to be part of the hellagregLIVE Live on there, because Greg, essentially, Discord is now integrated with the Cromulent Gang. So there's a hellagregLIVE tab that'll keep you up to date on any Twitch streams, anytime he posts something to YouTube. and anytime he tweets. And then there's just chat in there too, where Greg be posting his ideas.
Yeah.
And you guys can chat with him.
So get in there.
Yeah.
Do all of that. So here we go. Operation MKUltra, a highly classified project stemming from the OSS, which became the CIA. But to tell that story, we are going to start all the way back at the beginning, Jesse, all the way back at the beginning at Operation Paperclip. I know people who've heard me, I'm echoing. Why am I echoing?
Don't know.
I wonder, is it...
Still echoing, Wisco?
Yeah, if I'm... let's see. Got it. Fixed. Got it.
Error.
And I'm probably gonna have to, you know what? Let's just take a second. I'm gonna fix that on all these. Wait a second. Oh, no, I guess I did fix it on all of them. All right. Except this one. Now it's fixed. All right, sorry about that. So yeah, Operation MKUltra started from the OSS, which is the Office of Strategic Services, which was the predecessor to the CIA. We're going to start with Operation Paperclip, which was the brainchild of the OSS during World War II. People have heard it before on Serial Chillers a little bit, or if they've just heard me rant about things regarding Operation Paperclip.
I'm both.
Yeah, I've talked about it a lot. I don't agree with the whole process, but before we begin, just to give you an idea of the caliber of person involved in all this, I do have a quote from George Hunter White, who was a high-ranking narcotics officer in the United States. He ran a school for spies during World War II. He said,
which actually Disney bought as an option for a children's film now.
School for Spies. It does sound like fun. And like Frankie Muniz would be involved, maybe Danny Trejo or something.
Oh.
I think Disney optioned it and renamed it Spy Kids.
Oh, perfect.
That sounds more fun. Well, we'll talk about predictive programming a little bit too. So
no, I mean, yes, sir.
George Hunter White said in a letter to Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, who was supervising over a lot of the experiments for Project MKUltra, he said, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic. But today I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and the blessing of the All-Highest?" So that guy's got to be a piece of shit, just plain and simple.
It sounds like it.
Right, like just right out of the gate, that seems like a pretty uncool thing to like be excited about.
It's not really that cool, man.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty uncool thing to be excited about. Now that we have a baseline reading for the fuckery we're going to be seeing, Operation Paperclip began shortly after World War II, bringing over 1,500 of Germany's top scientists to the United States to work for us. When the Allied forces were picking through the rubble of Europe, they basically decided that it'd be a shame to let all this research that had taken place over the last, so long go to waste. So some of these scientists were sent back to Germany to face trials for their war crimes. Some of the quote unquote more important scientists were allowed to abstain because they said it was a national security risk to send them back to Germany because they could be killed while they were there and we would lose all the information.
Right.
So it became a national security thing. Some of the ones accused of war crimes had witnesses and evidence to back it up, but they were excused because of the benefit they could provide America. One girl had her legs broken, and then not set, just to see if they would like heal, if they would like remember how they were supposed to heal.
And she's like, "Yeah, America."
No. This was during the Nuremberg trials.
I see.
She sat there in the courtroom and was like, "That guy right there is the one that smashed my legs with the hammer."
I thought you were. For a second, I thought you were like, "Oh, they voluntarily, like this girl had her legs broken."
No.
Okay.
Like she was in a concentration camp, and she was like, "That guy right there smashed my legs with a hammer."
I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she was there in the courtroom and pointed at him in front of everybody. Was like, "That one right there." So props to her for that, because fuck that guy.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
But he eventually came to work for us. So there you
rockets and such.
Yeah. So the original guidelines made sure to say that quote-unquote ardent Nazis and quote war profiteers were not allowed to be contracted for this. Something we talked about during the JFK episode is the war profiteering. That was the Bush family and all those American companies that were profiting basically from World War. Not supposed to be doing that. So those people were on trial in Germany as well. But it became clear that a lot of Germany's top minds and of relevant fields were in those categories. Changes kind of had to be made. There were some exceptions to the rule. There was a man who hung Jewish prisoner slaves in a V-2 rocket factory from a crane above the assembly line for so long that Hitler himself had to order them to be cut down so that the crane could be put back into operation producing rockets. Like, it took the crane out of commission, and he left them up there for so long that they were like, look, we're falling behind. And, like, cut them down. Let's get back to work. You've made your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that man's name...
Hitler behind closed doors was like, yo, this guy is messed up.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, dude. And that man's name? It's Werner von Braun. He became the head of NASA and up until a few years ago had awards and buildings named after him. And if it weren't for his history in V-2 rockets, we wouldn't have made it to the moon. So that's a thing. That's the kind of people we named awards and buildings and shit after.
Yeah.
They're like, but he got us to the moon. So, no, what do you got?
No. Hot take. let's keep the ball rolling.
You want me to mute it real quick? Because I'm curious. I'm so curious. All right. Okay. Over the years, it took secrets and backdoor deals, cover-ups, and straight-up destruction of evidence to maintain the cloak over these happenings. Some of the German scientists were convicted of war crimes during the Nuremberg doctors' trial. There were 22 men and 1 woman on trial. 7 were sentenced to death, and 11 received prison sentences. 5 were acquitted. 5 Nazi doctors, they were like, there's not enough evidence to say that you're an ardent Nazi or that you actually committed these war crimes, so...
It's just all these people saying you did, and you just can't trust people these days.
we got your name on these papers, but what if these papers were to fall in the trash? Would you want to come change your name to Hans Smith and, like, maybe work for us?
Also, these fingerprints, they could just disappear, my friend.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
So the largest outcome of this trial was the authoring of the Nuremberg Code. It's a medical ethics law, and because the quote-unquote experiments, it seems more like torture than it was experiments, but because they were done at the slave labor and internment camps, and they were done without consent, and the victims were pushed to death, and the survivors weren't cared for. The Nuremberg Code has 10 major points. Required is the voluntary, well-informed understanding consent of the human subject in a full legal capacity. So go back and watch the Edgewood episode that we did for more information on how well the government's done with informed consent. The second one is the government should aim at positive results for society that cannot be procured in any other way. So, like, if it's possible, don't use humans.
If it's possible.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not always possible. It should be based on previous knowledge, e.g. an expectation derived from animal experiments that justifies the experiment. The experiment should be set up in a way that avoids unnecessary physical and mental suffering and injuries, except in experiments where the experimental physicians also suffer as severe subjects. As long as they all serve as subjects. So if the doctor's going to put you through a bunch of mental anguish, he's got to go through it as well to know where you're at. Like, it can't just be like, we're going to torture you and then sit back here and write. Like, if we're going to make you sit in here in this room full of tear gas, I'm going to be in the room full of tear gas as well, monitoring. And there's going to be other doctors to monitor.
We'll make it fairish.
I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, one for you, one for me kind of thing. Like, sucks we got to use you, but now we're going to use me as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm okay with a lot of this so far. Like, so let people know what you're doing. Don't use humans if you don't absolutely have to. If the patient's going to get it, the doctor has to get it. And the risk of this experiment should be in proportion to that is not to exceed the expected humanitarian benefits. So,
your experiment shouldn't kill more people than it's going to save.
Exactly. Make sure the juice is worth the squeeze. Preparations and facilities must be provided to adequately protect the subjects against the experiment's risks. So you got to actually be able to take care of and care for the people that you're experimenting on. The staff who conduct or take part in the experiments must be fully trained and scientifically qualified. Can't just be a bunch of
Not just some fucking military dudes.
Can't be just some
injecting
jagoff
shots.
who ran a school for spies in World War II.
Yeah.
The human subjects must be free to immediately quit the experiment at any point when they feel physically or mentally unable to go on. And likewise, the medical staff must stop the experiment at any point when they observe the continuation would be dangerous. So all that stuff seems pretty like above board. Like it makes a lot of sense.
I'm sure there are loopholes.
Well, so kind of try and remember as much of that as possible.
I gotta do work?
You don't have to.
Okay, good.
I think I did a fairly good job at pointing them out, but if I miss any along the way,
Help me out, chat.
yeah, feel free to jump in. Again, now that we kind of have a feel for people who are calling the shots and pulling the strings, we can see why there was supposed to be a medical ethics law. So again, back to the beginning of the OSS. They were founded in 1942. They were an agency of the JCS, or Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is a body of senior uniformed leaders in the United States Department of Defense who advise the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, the Homeland Security Council, and the National Security Council on military matters. So they're basically like an intelligence gathering operation. They gather all the intel from everybody and say, okay, here's what we've come up with. Here's our options. Here's our strategies. Here's what we're going to do. And their intel can range from, hey man, there's weird planes buzzing around off the coast of Florida.
To like word on the street is.
Yeah, I mean, it's just wherever we're gathering our intelligence.
Yeah.
The OSS Prime Directive was to coordinate espionage behind enemy lines. So, hey, we've got these guys in this area. They're going to meet with these guys, and this is what's happening. Yeah. And basically, it's the plausible deniability line around the president. So the president never actually officially knows what's going on, just knows the idea.
Right.
And that way he can't be held responsible for anything. But this is how they become so concerned with safety and availability of information. Part of their espionage also included the use of propaganda and subversion, or flipping things on its ear in post-war planning. In 2016, the OSS was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal.
It's a good thing they don't use that propaganda anymore.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they don't do.
I mean, that could be dangerous for America.
Absolutely. So William J. Donovan, or they called him Wild Bill, because that's a guy you want in charge of a bunch of scientists.
I mean, me? Do I get to pick?
Wild Bill Donovan was the first director of the OSS. He told the scientists involved to, quote, throw all of your law-abiding concepts out the window. This is a chance to raise merry hell.
Oh. It does sound wild.
Thanks, Wild Bill Donovan.
Well, I mean, like, look, if you've got a boss, that's what you want him saying, right? Just like, ain't no rules, fuckers. Just get the job done. I feel like that's how I was as a retail manager. Like, why are you sweeping right now? Sweep at 9. It's pointless to sweep at 6.
Yeah.
We're going to have to sweep again at 9. You know what we could do? Sit down right here.
Yeah, we can play a game of skate right here.
You sit with me, and I will sit with you.
And I will tell you stories about when I was younger.
Wild Bill's just ramping it up.
Dude, he did all the he took all the rock station's advice. Crank it up to 11 and rip the knob off.
Fuck yeah, Wild Bill. I mean, no, but fuck yeah.
No,
dude.
fuck no, Wild Bill, but fuck yeah, Wild Bill. In September 1945, President Truman signed Executive Order 9621, and as of October 1st, 1945, the OSS ceased to be. That's the end of our story. That's it.
Or did it?
However, in January of 1946, the Central Intelligence Group, later renamed the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, or the agency.
They're like, we didn't like SIG that much.
Yeah, it wasn't as cool as CIA. They were formed in 1946.
The Central Intelligence Agency.
Absolutely. The CIA was supposed to be a coordinator for all the military intelligence. The intended goal seemed to be that they would place a man covertly behind enemy lines who would gather intel and report back. They used groups to infiltrate areas and gather any information, create contacts, double agents, and so on. It's all very much still standard operating procedure on behalf of the CIA. Like, that's still what they do. But the original goal of the CIA was to say, well, we've got naval intelligence saying one thing, we've got army intelligence saying another thing, and we've got our spy on the ground saying a third thing, and they have to compile all that information and decipher it.
Get the Venn diagram and find out what's true.
Exactly. Find out what actually is happening and then report in a timely manner. That's the intention of the CIA.
That's not really what they do.
That's not what they do at all. No. They threw all their law-abiding concepts out the window in a chance to raise merry hell.
Wild Bill, woo!
The only thing that I think of when I think of Wild Bill is fucking Slim Pickens at the end of Dr. Strangelove, riding the bomb down from the plane. Like, I know that's not even close to what Wild Bill did, but I think of that every time. And it's probably just the name Wild Bill.
How do you know that's not what Wild Bill did? That's what I want to know.
Because if he did, he would have died, and the CIA would have had a different, or the OSS would have had a different director.
Would he have died, though? Do you know that for sure?
I mean, he rode a nuke to the ground.
But his name is Wild Bill.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, think about it.
When you've got a point, you've got a point.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing all the stuff that the CIA was supposed to be doing, they became their own extra-governmental clandestine entity, all of its own. Like we discussed in the JFK episode, they began working as a private extra-governmental body blessed by the highest powers in the U.S. government, and they answer to no one. Being that they're able to operate outside the normal government boundaries, they are kind of de facto the most powerful people in the country.
Blessed are we.
Mostly they're just kind of war criminals. They engage in espionage and in every country around the world, which is so fucking illegal. It's not even funny. They use weapons that are so new and advanced and so top secret, which is so fucking illegal. Like,
is that kind of side really quick? We don't have to stay on it very long, but I recently read about a year or two ago, the American diplomats in like China and one other Asian country, I believe, were like hit with this like wave of sickness, and it turned out to be recently proven that they were likely weaponized microwaves.
I mean that totally happens.
Yeah,
so they've been experimenting with like wave frequencies for a long time, and they have like once it doesn't have a military use anymore, the public sees it. You know what I mean? So you remember like those speech jammer toys that we saw, where you could like point them at somebody and it makes you talk like this because it's hard because you're hearing yourself back.
Right, at like a weird pace.
Right.
Yeah.
They have those that are so directed they can point them straight at you and only you would hear it.
Huh.
They have them where they can project what's called ELF, or extremely low frequency, and it just fucking reverberates inside your head. You can't
fun.
You can't write your name, and it's non-lethal.
Yeah.
There's no lasting effects.
It just makes your brain feel like oatmeal for a while.
Yeah, and once they shut it off, it's done.
Dang.
But I mean, imagine if they had one that wasn't so much sniper rifle style and it was more shotgun blast style, where they could get a whole crowd of people at once. I mean,
we don't like to think of it as shotgun, more as fire hose.
Right, exactly. I mean, pretty much. So, I mean, that's exactly right where I am in this in the outline too. They use weapons that are so new and advanced and top secret. Legislation isn't even available on them. Like, they don't.
Hey, if there's no precedent, what are you gonna do?
Well, right. They don't know that they can't do it because there's no law that says they can't do it. Because
I'm sorry, officers.
Chip, no.
Didn't know I couldn't do that. I've been drinking.
Get out of here. So, again, we've talked about how they determine the military value of an object or an idea and then release it to the public when it's been exhausted. Speech jammers. All that shit.
Also, a change of the lights to blue, please.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, you got it. Let's see. That's pretty blue.
Blue.
Yeah.
Don't say it.
Nah, I won't. I wasn't gonna until you put it in my head too. So yeah, we've also talked about like how they experiment with different ways to hurt people with, cancer pants, exploding cigars.
Oh, cancer pants.
Yeah.
How I forgot about the.
Don't forget about cancer pants.
Well, now I won't. Now it's been twice. It's in there. The first time it was like, oh, good, I'll be able to forget about this.
Cancer pants is ingrained.
Yep. Now I'm stuck with cancer pants.
So human nature is to hold on to something that you want and currently have. If you want power and you have power, you will protect power. That could be through a show of force by overthrowing a government. That could be through collecting intelligence and espionage on foreign soil, unbeknownst to the leaders of that country during a time of peace. It could be through mind control, propaganda, predictive programming, lies, fake news, and subliminal messaging. Or it can be through strategy, like bringing certain people into your circle to maintain the status quo and continue your own way of life.
Fake news.
Fake news. So we'll talk a little bit about the Manhattan Project. Most of you probably know what this is. It was conceived during a meeting of the Bilderberg Group, which is against the Bilderberg laws.
There you go. You make the laws. You don't have to stand for them.
But you're not supposed to. So, like, one of their deals there is, like, weaving spiders make no webs here or some shit like that. Weaving spiders not welcome or some shit like that. Basically, like, leave your business at the gate. And when we're here, it's just playtime. We're just doing skits and worshiping a giant owl that we're going to burn later and being...
Effigies are cool. Effigies are cool.
Yeah, sometimes.
Effigies can be cool.
Yeah, effigies can be cool. So that's all Bilderberg's supposed to be. And then you get guys coming in there and they're doing things like fucking the Manhattan Project, which, again, is when we designed the nuclear bomb that we dropped on Japan during World War II. So it was a project that was designed, tested, and ultimately responsible for dropping the first nuclear bombs, both in warfare and in testing. The testing is what we were told we're going to focus on briefly. Between 250 and 500,000 American soldiers were exposed to various levels of radiation at both Bikini Atoll and the Nevada desert.
But it was beautiful.
They essentially lined these guys up and had them sit in the sand. And, like, everybody was sitting in these long, straight rows. Like, 5-10 people wide. There'd be, 1,000 soldiers sitting there. And then, kind of off in the distance, you'd see a mushroom cloud. And... these guys are like, wow, that was crazy. And so then they detonated a nuke a little ways away and then used the soldiers as a gauge to see how far that radiation actually penetrated. But don't worry, they were super serial about how they cleaned them off. They lined them all up.
Super serial.
They lined them all up and then walked by with a broom and just dusted them off. Because,
That's like what I do to my cats.
Dude, that's how they cleaned the radiation off these guys during the first nuclear tests.
It's a nuclear broom.
Yeah, so...
Do you not?
Like, that's the worst.
Yeah.
Seems,
Don't tase me, bro!
No, that wasn't the one I was looking for.
Don't nuke me, bro.
Yeah, don't do that either.
I recently watched a clip of a bunch of... groundskeeper Willie? Of a bunch of Australian dudes who were there for a nuclear test in the water, like, on a boat, and they weren't aware that they were... And they were, like... crazy too close, like not in the immediate death zone,
right. And
obviously not in the radio because they're just like old men. But they talked about how like the flash when it hit them, they all put their hands over their eyes, but they could still all see through their hands. Mm-hmm. Like they're like you could see the bones and we could see each other through our hands, and it was covering our eyes. And
yeah,
I was like, I couldn't watch it anymore. I was like, that's just too scary for me, dude.
That
These
poster,
poor old timers.
That poster that I have of Bikini Atoll, the guy that took that picture was circling the bomb site when they detonated the test. He's the one that was he took photos over the beaches.
In a helo, I'm guessing?
No, in a plane.
Oh shit.
They would go out and loop around.
Yeah.
But he's the one who took pictures over Normandy on D-Day. Like all those aerial photos of all the soldiers storming the beach and stuff. Mm-hmm. That was him.
Oh shit.
And so they brought him back in for these tests because they were like, okay, we know we can trust you or whatever.
Yeah.
And the way he described it when he was talking about all the tests and stuff, it was so insane, talking about feeling the heat, even though they were flying away from it. And just like the power and the shockwave when it hit the plane and all this stuff, and just looking at the destruction of everything down below. And I was like, man, that's fucking metal. Like, I would love to see that picture. And then I looked up at the wall and I was like, oh, I've got the poster of that.
Own that picture.
Holy cow.
Hell yeah.
That was crazy. So, yeah, that's kind of where they were at with the Manhattan Project. They were testing on people already. They were testing nukes on people just to see what happens.
That's what this video was like. We were just guinea pigs, and we didn't even like know. We just got put in a boat, put in the water, and where do you go? Where can you run?
Yeah, some guys got like sunglasses to see. Some guys got like Shade 5 welding stuff. Some guys didn't get anything. So it's all really, awful. In 1948, Dr. Albert Hoffman invented LSD. That's going to be important for later.
Thank you.
the CIA learned about it and was so afraid that the USSR was going to get their hands on it that they bought Hoffman's entire supply.
Hey.
Yeah, they were like, we can't have this getting out.
He's like, I can make it again.
Right? Idiots.
Worst deal ever.
Unless they bought the rights.
Right? He's like, yeah, but still, come on, look at my created LSD, dude. I'm making that shit again.
Yeah, it was a Swedish lab that he worked for.
I'm making that shit again.
Scaredy I can just imagine him like making LSD too, throwing the ingredients in like the Swedish chef, just not measuring things out. And
he's just eyebrows, no eyes.
it's like a combination of the Swedish chef and Bunsen.
Oh,
Dr. Bunsen and Beaker.
Beaker.
Yes. It's always about you. So Dr. James Ketchum, he was doing a lot of LSD testing at this time for the Army Chemical Corps. You guys might remember that name from a bad trip to Edgewood.
I also remember it from him being the grandfather of the guy who caught a bunch of Pokemon. Ash Ketchum.
Yeah.
I think they're
related. I don't have the sad trombone sound yet. So bring that one back later.
That's because it hasn't been necessary because my jokes are amazing.
Impeccable.
You're missing the rim shot.
I'm sorry, I'm missing the what?
You heard me.
So he basically regarded this experience as a positive one where he was, testing LSD on people who didn't know it. He said that if others had known what was going on, they probably would have had more people signing up for the testing to have their brains melted by doing acid for 90 days, like consecutively.
I mean, it's a lot, but if it's for science.
Okay. I'm a patriot. He was also testing benzolate, which was the shit that stupefies you for 3 days with total amnesia. Remember looking at that?
Kind of.
The guy that was trying to walk around the table and couldn't.
No, I don't remember, man.
In fact, I don't remember the 3 days. So in defense of the druggings, he said, we couldn't tell them the names because some of the drugs were synthetic and it might reveal the structure. We didn't want the Russians getting their hands on it. We also knew they were following our work, and we thought they were ahead of us, but they were following us. So which is it? Come on, Dr. Ketchup. Which is it? Like,
Please clap.
Yeah. Hell yeah. There it is. I've got it. You should have just asked.
Please clap.
I was just showing it.
This is the only one I have.
I was trying to remember the commands.
Yeah. There's this one on there, too, if anybody wants to find it.
Down where your nuts hang.
I'm going to take some guesses.
I think it's just nuts.
Down where your nuts hang.
That's
First
the one.
guess.
First guess. So, yeah, like he's talking about he didn't want to reveal the structures of the drugs because the Russians were following their work, but they thought they were following the Russians, so the Russians were following them, so they didn't want to reveal anything. Like that's a whole lot of doublespeak for we just didn't want to tell them.
Yeah,
and people hear that shit and they're like, oh yeah, that's a perfectly fine response. Little sus. So the CIA was able to obtain the budget for their brainwashing experiments by using anybody? Propaganda. Yes, that's right.
I was going to say acid.
Well, a little bit. During the Korean War, some pilots were captured and claimed that they dropped chemical weapons. That's a war crime. The U.S. said it was because they were forced to say it through torture, which is a war crime. The CIA used it as an excuse to ramp up their research.
Which isn't a war crime, but
it's pretty uncool. And then the Korean War started in June of 1950. Operation Bluebird was active in April of 1950. So just a couple months before that went off, they were like, hey, we got this thing that we're going to do, and started, chemically dusting. So,
yeah.
Around that time,
and here we are
trying to keep linear with the timeline here. Around that same time, Walter Freeman was driving around the country in what he called the lobotomobile, which
for lobotomies,
for lobotomies, because he specialized in the transorbital lobotomy and could bang out roughly 15 to 20 in a day.
Oh, is that the one that goes through the eyeball?
Yeah, that's the ice pick through the eyeball. He gave one to Rosemary Kennedy in 1941. It left her permanently
I
incapacitated.
was just gonna say, wasn't one of the Kennedys lobotomized?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she had to live in a permanent care facility.
Is
for the
that
rest of her life.
JFK's sister? Okay.
Yeah. So he's doing that. Project Chatter.
What is he, like fucking Batman? This is to the lobotomobile. But dink.
Pretty much, he had people. He had like a little hospital bed in his lobotomobile that he would put everybody in, and then he put an ice pick in their eye and give it a little tap with the hammer.
I fucking hate this guy.
It's not so bad, Homer. They let you keep the little piece of brain they take out. Who's that? Who's that big man? So Project Chatter was the beginning of the Cold War. So now we're out of Korea. We're in. Well, I mean, it's still kind of around that same time, but the beginning of the Cold War, we were so fucking afraid of Russia that we were able to justify this stuff that I'm going to tell you about. We were like, this stuff was justified and allowed. We've mentioned
Russia scary.
We've mentioned the Red Scare, and frankly, I still feel like it's understated exactly how dangerous it is to have the entire country fighting for just an idea rather than, But hey, that's how you control people, right?
I've heard this.
Project Chatter kind of began in 1947, sponsored by the Navy. Its primary objective was to test interrogation techniques and various drugs. During this time, Dr. Charles Savage, pretty badass name, operated out of the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, where they performed a second autopsy on JFK. That's where the second one that was performed after they did one at the hospital in Texas. Also the city where my grandparents met and were married. So that's cool.
Fun.
He tested a thing called anabasin, which is chemically similar to nicotine, but its primary use is an insecticide.
Now, is that saying a lot for the insecticide, or is it saying a lot for nicotine?
I don't know. I really don't know, because I know nicotine's poison. If you were to get too much of it, you won't get enough in a cigarette to poison you,
Right.
or like in chewing tobacco or anything like that. But if you were to get
pure nicotine,
it'll kill you. It'll absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
I learned that from CSI. Thanks, Grissom. Remember that one time I wrote the ode to Grissom?
Open letter to Grissom.
Yeah. I wish
do.
I could find that.
I do remember that.
He also tested scopolamine, which treats motion sickness and is used for post-operative nausea and vomiting. Also used...
And fucking tripping.
And a long time ago, it was used for creating zombies. And it was used for tripping nuts, yeah. They also tested mescaline, which is a hallucinogen found in the peyote cactus. You look like you had something you want to say to that.
No, I was gonna say also fucking trip you out.
Yeah,
but you went there. if it's from peyote, you know.
So officially, this program ended in 1953, just after the Korean War. Officially. Oftentimes, when these projects end, it's because they've shifted gears, and to keep the research organized, they'll create new operations and projects and kind of lump them together under one umbrella name. In our case, this project intersected with research underneath an operation called Project Bluebird. Project Bluebird, see, they give them these stupid-ass names, too.
Light switch to green.
Oh, light switch to green.
Hella green, sorry.
Yeah. There it is.
I mean, they're not stupid. They're just random, though. But I guess that makes sense. You wouldn't want to call it, Operation Hallucinogenic Fluids.
Yeah.
It's...
Operation Mind Control.
Right. If you're going through a file, you're going to be what the fuck? Bluebird, Paperclip, Manhattan. What? Fuck, dude. I don't... Take them all.
Chatter.
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
Mockingbird? What? Artichoke? I don't... what is this? What kind of shopping list is this? So Project Bluebird was, for all intents and purposes, the same thing as Chatter, and they were experimenting with drugs and hypnosis as an interrogation technique. They wanted to see if it was possible to use a combination of drugs, hypnosis, and interrogation on captured enemy soldiers, but they also wanted to see if we could build up a defense against it. They said all this was in the interest of national security. They wanted our soldiers to be able to withstand the interrogation techniques that we were absolutely sure the Russians were developing. Spoiler, they actually had a very similar program going at the same time, so not that far off.
So we're both just torturing our own people. Get ready, those fuckers are going to torture you.
Pretty much.
Therefore, we shall torture you.
Yeah, we'll torture you so much that whatever they do to you is not going to even bother you.
Wonder why we didn't just start waterboarding our dudes in the early 2000s.
We did.
Our dudes, we did it to...
You have to be waterboarded to graduate from certain academies and
There
stuff.
you go. Never mind. I take it back.
Yeah.
Hoorah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, they weren't that far off thinking that, oh, the Ruskies got one going. Like,
Yeah. Like, no, they literally are doing this.
yeah, they had the same thing going. So, I guess even a broken clock's right twice a day. See, the government being a broken clock, that's not a new thing. It's been going on for decades. Yeah. Better part of a century. Project Bluebird then expanded after all this and became Project Artichoke. August 16th, 1951, days before the start of Project Artichoke, a village in the Gard region of France is plagued with madness. Absolute madness. Dozens of villagers have this madness. Men reported being terrorized by snakes, quote, swirling in their stomachs.
I know what they're talking about.
August 25th in the evening, many were experiencing convulsions, and a doctor described it like, quote, in a night of the apocalypse. One man recounted that he hadn't slept for 21 days. He said, despite the sleeping pills and sedatives that the doctor gave him, which is super crazy because a few days without sleep will mess you up.
Like two. Like, for someone who's not used to it, like 48 hours without sleep.
Right. And a week without sleep will drive you insane, and 3 weeks without sleep could be fatal. Yeah. Like,
because that's like right about the world record, if I'm not mistaken. It's like in the 20-day region.
I have no idea. Yeah. But it seems like, I mean, things would start shutting down. Not to mention hallucinations that come with sleep deprivation and your brain trying to force REM sleep while you're still awake. And what's my record of days without sleep? I think 3. And I don't want to do it again.
I don't think I've ever gone a full 3. I've probably gone like 50 hours or something.
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
I mean, and I specifically remember when I did crash, we were supposed to hang out, and I was like, yo, dude, you want to hang out? And you were like, yeah, sure. Like, come over in like an hour or so, I'll be home. And I was like, all right, cool. And then passed out on the couch and was gone for like a full day.
Was it the time that I called Sam and was like, yo, is Greg all right?
Yeah, she was at work. She's like, I don't know.
Let's both keep our fingers crossed, shall we?
Yeah, when she got home, she's like, are you okay? And I was just like, huh? How long have I slept? She's like, 18 hours.
Fair enough.
Cool. No, I definitely don't hold the world record.
Yeah. Like 21 days, not 21 hours, Eddie.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. So, plus general lack of brain power and all that stuff. This guy also said his daughter suffered from the same hallucinations. He said she was standing on her bed, seeing blood fall from the ceiling everywhere, and she saw lions and tigers and bears.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Was she listening to that fucking Slayer song, Raining Blood, dude?
In 1951? Very likely.
Maybe she wrote it.
It was probably sounded a lot more like the Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy from Company B.
Huh. It's actually only 11 days. The
11
world
days.
record for no sleep is 11 days or 264 hours
Yikes.
with no drifting off. Like no.
Yeah, see, that's how mine was. Like when, like day 2, I remember like laying there and trying to fall asleep, and my eyes would just spring back open, and I was like, well, okay, guess we'll play some more.
I love this. It says, after the 11 days or 264 hours without drifting off, there was only one way to celebrate. He was whisked off to a naval hospital where researchers kept an eye on him, and he went to sleep.
Yeah, good. Yeah, they were afraid he was going to go into too deep of a sleep, and his body was going to shut down.
Shit. His name's Randy Gardner.
Randy Gardner.
And he did it in 1964.
Real American hero. Live stream 21 days of not sleeping.
Only 11.
Oh, 11 days. That's
11
right.
days, yeah.
Man.
He's from San Diego, California.
Well, good for him.
Yeah, good for him.
Shout out Randy Gardner. Right?
Yep, and he was only 17 at the time, and he did it crossing a new year. So he did it from December of 63 into January of 64.
Hey, look at him go.
See you guys, I'm not sleeping until next year.
God, that would just be awful. So this lady was standing on her bed seeing these animals, and they were jumping on her and trying to eat her. And every time she said she would try to scream, instead of sound coming out, hair came out.
Ew.
And she said she would grab the hair and try and pull it, but she could never get all of it.
What's that one disease where people think they have like small hairs growing out?
They do. they do have small like fibers that grow out of their skin.
Sounds like that.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's a real thing. That fucking freaks me out. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I would know it if I saw it. So yeah, basically everybody who fell ill ate bread from the Brion Bakery, and everybody was all freaked out about it. 300 people were poisoned overall. 150 were admitted to psych wards, and 7 died. A man that they named Poosh. That was his name. Pouche. That's all they called him. Poosh.
You know that bakery fucked if like everybody in the village
it was the only one in the village.
I get it. But
like
everybody had it that day. Like literally like everybody in the village is like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I ate from the bakery today."
yeah. So they Poosh went to his window and he yelled, "Look, I'm a dragonfly. I can fly." And then he leapt to his death.
I can go twice as high.
Yeah, straight to the ground. Yeah. Another man also jumped from his window, broke both of his legs, and ran away screaming. Some people saw fire everywhere while they struggled and screamed, thinking the whole village was on fire.
You're highly suggestible. That's the thing. It's like someone starts screaming fire, and you will manifest that.
Yeah,
It's not a difficult thing to imagine.
So,
Not that I've.
One lady said because she remembers they were talking to people who were involved in this. One lady said that some people just lost it and started slap fighting in the street. They were just wailing on each other and screaming and slapping and fighting each other in the streets. And I'm like, that actually sounds like a lot of fun.
Unless all of those people probably thought their life was on the line though.
Probably, but knowing it's not, I think it would be fun. Just
as the observer.
Yeah, as just an open slap fight.
You guys are just slap fighting. This is great. $6 on the guy in green.
Y'all are phenomenal. I love it. So this was originally believed to be St. Anthony's fire, which does exist, has happened before in the Middle Ages. St. Anthony's fire is an illness brought on by the ingestion of a fungus-contaminated rye grain causing ergot poisoning.
That's Salem witch trials, if I'm not mistaken. That's the leading theory for the Salem witch trials is ergot.
Really?
Yeah, that's what happened was a mass hysteria over their plants, got an extra rain when they weren't supposed to in the spring, so they developed the fungus. Yeah, the oats or the whatever developed the fungus. They milled it, made bread, and interesting.
That's so the disease's common name derives from the medieval Benedictine monks dedicated that to a saint who offered treatment to sufferers, sometimes using relics of the saint to do so. Symptoms included convulsions, hallucinations, and excruciating burning sensations in the limbs. Dubbed Ignis Sacer, Holy Fire, the affliction blackened the limbs until they fell off at the joint. And common wisdom of the time held that the sickness was spiritual and the divine intervention could treat it. Holy goddamn shit. Just holy shit. Imagine your arms just burning and then turning black and then falling off at the joint.
No.
Yeah, no, think about it for a minute.
Well, as somebody who has experienced a really bad staph infection,
yeah,
that's almost like what you feel like is happening, because I got legitimately a necrotizing fasciitis.
Ugh.
And my skin for a blob about this big on my side was just black with
Yikes.
a center hole that just that's where it was we need to stop this from fucking growing. And it was so I kind of can in a way, but not, it wasn't
that. It was,
but
that chunk didn't fall out.
Also Morgellons disease or Morgellons.
Yes,
disease
that's the one with the fibers.
I looked it up for you.
Yes.
Producer Jesse at your service.
Killing the game. So the baker and the miller were both detained and held for months. They were coerced into giving confessions, even though the evidence said that they were innocent.
Coerced by torture.
Yeah. But they both confessed to being responsible for it, even though that wasn't the case.
Well, when they hold a red hot iron poker at your eyeball, and they're
not your eyeball, buddy.
I'm burning your feet.
Yeah, that's where they put it.
I was just quoting Chappelle's show. I didn't want to talk about burning on nooses and stuff.
So then they thought it might have been water poisoning, but it wasn't that either. When asked what could cause such a thing, Dr. Albert Hoffman said it was almost certainly LSD. However, once he returned to Sweden, he backtracked his story and then fell off and became almost completely unreachable.
Good for him.
Yeah. The citizens of the village still don't know exactly what happened, but we do have some information. The information that really information actually really does piss me off. And I'll tell you why after I tell you the information. So CIA agent Frank Olson was alleged to have been in the area of the village around the same time that this was taking place. They also claim he sank into a depression and was telling his wife that he'd made terrible mistakes. Here's kind of why this pisses me off. Olson was a chemist, not a field agent. He was a researcher, so he may have dosed people in the lab. He may have gone out and dosed people around town or whatever. But they're not going to send a chemist into the field where he could be caught by other forces. Also, almost every other report of the man said he was relatively good-natured. They also say he was dosed with way too much LSD and it adversely affected him, resulting in the depression. He died after falling from a 10th floor hotel room in his underwear. He's the one that they made Wormwood about. He would have had to basically run through the hotel room to get enough speed to break through the window. He didn't even open the blinds when he died. He dove through the blinds and the window without opening either. A similar death to Lawrence Dugan, who was a high-level government official who died in the same manner. As for Frank, there was 2 beds in his room, so he split the room with a guy named Robert Lashbrook, a hotel operator connected a call from. I'm sorry. The hotel operator connected a call from room 1018, which was their room, to a Dr. Harold Abramson, and the operator stayed on the line, which I guess was customary to make sure the call was complete or whatever to disconnect it. She reported hearing the following, well, he's gone. And the other one saying, well, that's too bad. Just after Olson's death. Yeah, so I think to me that seems like they blamed Frank Olson for that village because they got caught and they needed somebody to put it on, and who can't defend themselves better than a dead guy. You know what I mean?
That's very true.
So that's what that whole thing just kind of pissed me off because that's the first time I've ever heard Frank Olson being alleged to be involved with it, and I just didn't like it. The whole thing doesn't sit well with me because of all the stuff that I've heard about Frank Olson, it was never that.
Yeah.
And for it to come up in this one spot, I don't know. Like I said, it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't like it. So the information came out that it was likely the CIA working with the Army Chemical Corps, dosing the bread supply of a town with drugs and causing the village to go insane as a result. France is and was an ally at this time. This is just another war crime. I don't know if anybody's keeping score, but that's fucking 6 or something.
It's a lot of war crimes.
It's a lot of war crimes. In 1951 and for roughly the next 10 years in a Philadelphia prison, prisoners were used as test subjects. In 1961, a man named Yusuf had his digestive tract operated on, liver and skin problems, and as a result was unable to work for the rest of his life. His first test, he said, was a bath foam for Johnson & Johnson, a family company. I wonder. I actually wonder how he feels about their No More Tears campaign.
He's there were so many tears.
I'll tell you what they did. He said they put tape on his back and 6 patches on his back going down the sides. He said they would apply the tape and then remove it and then reapply it and remove it. And they kept doing that until it took off the first layer of skin. Then they put bubble bath on a patch and put the patch over the raw area and then taped it in place. And then he said they produced a can that he said, quote, I recognized as being from the Army. And he said in an interview, I thought, now what's Johnson & Johnson got to do with the Army?
That's not a bad question.
That's a great fucking question. So he said they pulled out this can, they walked behind him, they sprayed it all over his back, and he said the fumes were so strong that he was getting lightheaded while he was walking back to his cell. When he got back to his cell, he passed out. When he woke up, his back was covered in blisters with this massive rash. He said eventually it would subside and then flare up again for almost no reason. So it was like a reactivating rash. In a second experiment, they operated on his digestive tract. In a third, he had to do simple sums while drinking a colorless liquid. That lasted for weeks. Everything was magnified, sound, color. So, you know, it sounds like they were just dosing him with LSD.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, too, he was arrested and put in prison for selling marijuana. Yeah, that's...
How silly.
Yeah.
He's like, but did you guys know purple tastes like doors?
They were like, this guy...
Get in the car, watch your head.
So yeah, I do feel like it's very unjust. Very unjust. Project Artichoke was a Central Intelligence Agency project that researched interrogation methods preceded by Bluebird. Artichoke officially arose on August 20th, 1951, and was operated by the CIA's Office of Scientific Intelligence. The primary goal of Project Artichoke was to determine whether or not a person could be involuntarily made to perform an act of attempted assassination. The project also studied hypnosis, forced morphine addiction, and the use of other chemicals, including LSD, to produce amnesia and other vulnerable states in subjects. Project Artichoke led to Project MKUltra, which began in 1953. That's from the Wikipedia.
See, when MKUltra, they're starting to get into naming it something where you might be like, hey,
well,
what's this?
A lot of the rumor for MKUltra, because there's a lot of MK programs.
Okay.
Like sub-programs from MKUltra.
Like it actually stands for mind control, but the first asshole who filled out the paperwork
was
put a
German
K instead of a.
And that's...
I see. I was just joking.
No, that was it. Like,
I mean, yeah, I did research.
Mind control with a K, and that's what they said the MK came
It's
for.
like an edgy teenager making up their band's name.
Yeah, mind control. So this was all the same idea, gathering different interrogation techniques using a variety of drugs. The real controversy is the tests that, while being performed on the doctors themselves, they were also being performed on people without their knowledge or consent. Oftentimes, they were prisoners, mental asylum patients, and soldiers. So, again, it's not even like, it's not even using the enemy. You know what I mean? Like, in World War II, the Nazis saw the Jews as the enemy, so they were using them for their experiments. Using POWs, things like that. We were using our own guys. We were using the best of the best, like we talked about in Edgewood, the top 25%. Come
on, we want to make Captain America.
Yeah, they're trying to use the astronaut class to do this shit. So they were given a variety of drugs in different doses and under different circumstances to figure out how much was enough to sedate someone but keep them awake and coherent enough as to be able to answer questions. They were also encouraging of a very anything goes attitude in the laboratories. There was a fair amount of self-experimentation going on. There were some doctors who wouldn't give anything to the patient that they didn't first try themselves. So when experimenting with drugs, I guess that's a pretty noble thing. Like, we're not gonna fuck you up with this shit until we fuck ourselves up with this shit. So it seems like a good move to know the effects that you're about to inflict on somebody, especially when they don't know it's coming. Also, that's probably the last time throughout this episode that I'm going to refer to anything as noble.
Fair enough.
Pretty much everything from here on out is awful. Eventually Project Artichoke evolved again and took on more tasks. It was still about interrogation, but now it's more about the mind and how we can use the mind as a weapon. The United States was still in the Cold War. We couldn't very well fire a shot or risk nuclear war because we had the bomb. Russia had the bomb. Russians had that doomsday failsafe, allegedly. And tensions were high, so it was all about covert warfare. How can we get information without killing? More importantly, how can we make sure they don't remember we were there at all? This kind of thinking, coupled with the fraternity vibe encouraged by military top brass, led to what was known as Project MKUltra. On the CIA website, there's 1,112 pages of FOIA requests that you can read that are available to the public on Project MKUltra.
And they're just like 90% black marker.
Mostly, yeah. It was a project that was so secret and covered up that most of the top-ranking officials in the country weren't even in the proverbial loop. They didn't know about it.
Wow.
They were aware of different military factions doing their best to protect us from the Russians. That's what they were told. Is that, we're working on counter-espionage measures. We're working on interrogation techniques. And that's what you're told, and that's all you need to know. That'll satisfy any sort of committee looking for answers.
I need to know more than this.
No, I agree. But that'll satisfy any committee prodding around. You know what I mean?
Right.
Making sure that you guys are above board. So therefore, anything done in the interest of national security was top priority. The project stems from all the other interrogation studies. How can we retrieve information from a soldier? How can we make sure they can't trace it back to us? What if our guys are captured? What if the Russians have same or better technology? These kind of fears drove the project and the experiments to the extreme. We already mentioned him, but in 1951, Sidney Gottlieb joins the show. We talked about him a little bit in the Edgewood episode. He joins the CIA as a poison expert. He did cool shit like search for the flesh of God, that super hallucinogenic mushroom. In 1953, he's the head of Project MKULTRA. He also sponsored Dr. Ewan Cameron. Remember that name for later. No, he's an easy one to remember, but because he's a piece of shit too.
Fair.
Keep in mind, most of the drug and hypnosis experiments are still taking place up to this point. They ventured into the world of LSD-25. They were so afraid that the Russians had a fucking shit ton of LSD, so they bought everything that they could from Hoffman.
He's just cleaning up.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, I found a little more. I don't know if you want this too.
Well, so there was one guy who had, like, one day in his office, like a 55-gallon drum showed up. And he was like...
It's like that Whitest Kids You Know skit.
A little bit.
Like,
not exactly. But
gallon of PCP. I didn't even know you can get it in.
A 55-gallon drum showed up in his office, and he was like, trained to not ask questions. So he just let it be.
So take a drink, dude.
A couple days later, he was like, all right, I got to know. A couple days. And he was like, I got to know.
I've just been breathing this stuff, man.
So he goes and he opens it, and it was filled with, it had a rack in it. And in the rack were thousands of vials of LSD 25. He said he did a little quick math and estimated the street value at the time to be over $1 billion. So, yikes.
It's a weird thing to like show up. You said in his office?
Mm-hmm. He said, and then the next day, gone. Just as quickly as it vanished, it's gone.
That's crazy.
I mean, all this shit is crazy, though.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it totally makes sense. It with as much as they're trying to fuck with people's heads, it totally makes sense to just like store a 55-gallon drum full of LSD in somebody's office.
Yeah.
As much as it makes sense to have somebody who's dressed like Big Bird come and sit across from you and just be like,
quit looking at me, Big Bird.
For like 45 minutes.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing's outside the realm of, like, nothing's insane anymore. When everything's insane, nothing's insane. So yeah, we had several 100,000 doses of LSD. We also had an army of our own Nazi war criminal scientists working to reconstruct the drug. They never really stopped or even slowed down with the hypnosis or drugs. They were being conducted by the Army Chemical Corps, working with the same scientists, the Nazi Luftwaffe scientists who were experimenting in the death camps. And that we brought over. We put them to work. We were like, hey guys, don't even slow down. Just keep going.
Rockets and stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Just keep going. At this point, they recruited George White. This guy's a chunk of shit again.
Remember his name? Chunk of shit.
Chunk of shit White. He was a high-ranking narcotics officer with the federal government. Again, he ran the school for spies in World War II. Somebody was like giving an account of the kind of person that he was. They were in a restaurant and he was sitting in a booth with like a second man. They were talking across the table, having like a normal, quiet conversation. And a waiter approached them. He was like, "Oh, hi guys, I'm ready to take your order now." Now, if you and I were sitting there having a conversation, the waiter comes up and interrupts and says, "I'm ready to take your order now. What do you do?"
I'd be like, "Oh, just a second, man."
Yeah.
Or order my food.
I would just order my food.
Yeah.
Right. Or yeah, excuse me, can we have just a second, please? Yeah. George basically said, "Don't interrupt me." And the waiter returned later to follow up on taking the order and was met with George White standing up, unholstering his gun, placing it to the waiter's forehead and screaming about being interrupted.
Some like Richard Kuklinski shit.
Like in the middle of a restaurant, he stood up and put his gun to this guy's forehead and was like, "Do not interrupt me again. Do you understand?"
Are you sure this isn't just Wild Bill?
It's George White. This is the guy that said he had fun.
Fun.
So this guy used the budget allotted to him to set up quote unquote safe houses in San Francisco and New York. These had mixed classes of people that he felt were needed to accomplish his missions. In official capacity, the sub-project was called Operation Midnight Climax.
Nice. Operation Wet Dream.
That one was already taken. They had to call it Midnight Climax. Most guys have a fucking lawyer on retainer or something, but my guy kept hookers on call. George White kept hookers on call. Yeah, he's a dumpy piece of shit, but that's a pretty fucking boss move. He just got hookers on retainer. He used his safe house with prostitutes as part of his experiments. He basically set up brothels on both coasts, and they would kidnap people and bring them in, and then the hookers would dose them with drugs, psychotropic drugs, and then just watch. He would
He's like, but I came here to watch.
So he had these rooms fitted with two-way glass, so he could sit behind in this. He had this little tiny small room, like with a toilet and a table, and he was behind this little wall, and he would watch these people. The hookers would bring the guys in, they would dose them with drugs, they'd fuck them, and then he'd record everything, and then use it as blackmail against them. So they used it with political dignitaries. They'd bring like high-ranking political people from other countries in, and then, hey, look, now we've got this information on you. And it kind of gets worse from there. He would pay prostitutes about $100. They would bring the Johns back to the safe house. They'd dose them with the LSD. Again, it's a war crime. LSD wasn't the only drug they were given. They tested anything and everything that they could find and mixed it into a chemical cocktail that would hopefully semi-incapacitate their target while still keeping them useful enough to take part in the experiments. They would prod these guys for information about their personal lives that they could use against them. White would then record the happenings, and then he noticed it caused lower sexual inhibitions. He also noticed it caused amnesia of sorts, and that these had practical applications in espionage. If you're a wad of dog shit, it's good to have.
He's like, you won't want to bone, and you won't remember shit.
No, you will want to bone.
Oh, I see.
And it'll
Just
lower
makes you horny as hell and forget everything.
It lowers your inhibitions. So when somebody suggests something that maybe you're not into, you're into it now.
I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
So alcohol,
but more.
Okay.
Alcohol without the whiskey dick. Yeah. So these safe houses were also very fraternity-like in the fact that neighbors, because these were like set up in apartments and stuff. Neighbors recalled, quote, men in suits with no jackets, with guns in their shoulder holsters, intoxicated, and chasing intoxicated women in various states of undress up and down the hall for all hours of the night.
AKA the good time party house. Hey!
I was just going to say, that doesn't necessarily sound like such a bad idea. That sounds like a lot of fun. This went on under the supervision of George White for years. By day, he was a narc putting people in prison for drug offenses. By night, giving people drugs for the purpose of quote-unquote scientific
By night,
experimentation.
committing drug offenses.
Right. We doing it without their knowledge or consent. And that last little tidbit, the knowledge and consent, is the important part because that's what makes it a fucking war crime. They were later used to photograph powerful people and high-ranking officials in various governments. They were photographed in precarious situations, oftentimes engaging in acts that they may not have regularly engaged in, lower sexual inhibition. Sometimes it would be homosexual in nature. Sometimes it would be pedophilic in nature. Yeah, that was always a bummer.
It's one thing to be like, look at him, he's gay.
Well, and
another thing to be like, look at him, he's diddling this kid.
Well, and the kids were also drugged.
Yeah, no, that's what I assumed.
Right, and that was like a whole separate side project from this. They were drugged, and they were in the process of being psychosexually tortured to create children sleeper agents, and they were like, well, who are we gonna get to rape the kids? And they were like, George, get George's guys. And he's like, yeah, sure, bring them in. And he'd throw them down in there with these guys, and it would be what it was. And he's videotaping all this, and then he would confront them with it the next day, and he'd be like, so business ventures in your country now. And they'd be like, we're not doing business with you at all. And he'd be like, well, why don't you take a look at this tape? And this person would be like,
"Is this not you?"
yeah. Oh shit. And now they're playing ball with us for all the things that, yeah. So it's pretty awful. So they also, again, like I said, they were trying to create child agents who were capable of capital murder, and keeping secrets about having their brain broken and compartmentalized. So yeah, that's just all terrible. The whole thing's awful.
It's a lot.
It's always damaging to the parties involved. Then shortly after these people were confronted with the pictures and video evidence, careful documentation, notes, photographs, and everything was kept. They were used as leverage for political and financial gain. The financial part, I assume, was to fund more covert and clandestine operations, because you can't necessarily budget for, like, you can't go to Congress and be like, hey, we need another $500,000 because
I got this clandestine. I got this thing.
Yeah.
I got a
We have a safe house where we're drugging and molesting kids with hookers and stuff, and we need money for more LSD.
We need an extra $3 million because, listen, the LSD is supposed to last a year, and let me be honest,
we've been burning through it.
It's only got 3 or 4 months, and we are ready for a re-up. So
yeah, so like I would assume they extorted money for these purposes.
Perfect. It's like sold crack to the inner cities.
Well, we're not there yet. That was in the 80s. This isn't going to make it to the 80s. I think this polishes off in the 70s. Yeah, if you can have another foreign leader bankroll an espionage project that they think is going to help them too, because they could be like, hey, look, this is going to be one hand washing the other, and it's not so much we've got you on tape doing all this terrible shit, but why don't we work together against this other country, like a little 3-team trade thing going, and using this as leverage. Now you're working for me, and I can guarantee that you're not going to double cross me, because if you do, I've got this video or whatever. The reckless use of LSD kind of got out of control. They were going to bars and dosing people and then just leaving. They weren't even like staying to record the events.
At that point, you're just like a mean kid with a magnifying glass.
Yeah, you're just a dick.
Yeah.
You're just an absolute, complete, and total dick. Again, a direct violation of the Nuremberg Code, war crime and shit.
That doesn't really seem to be an issue with these guys.
No.
Like if we go a full day without committing the war crime, it hurts us inside.
So George White, this went on for a while. This went on for years. So by the mid-'60s, they wrapped this project up. They wrapped up Operation Midnight Climax. Again, George White sent in a letter to Sidney Gottlieb. I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie, kill, cheat, steal, rape, and pillage with the sanction and the blessing of the All-Highest? So that's the guy that ran Operation Midnight Climax.
Yeah, old Operation Wet Dream.
Yeah. There was a lady named Candy Jones. She was a model and an actress during World War II. She was popular enough to be able to start her own modeling agency. Though it wasn't really enduring a whole lot of success. She had some expenses. She had...
You're like, but she had it.
Yeah, no, I mean, she was doing her thing, but it was a little bit of a tough go.
Yeah.
She had a husband named Long John Nebel, who was a radio host, and she had
he already had the name for it.
Yeah, and she had 2 kids in private school. As was the style at the time, she was fiercely patriotic. She was approached by the FBI, who she allowed them to use her office as a transfer site for quote unquote government agencies to use. From her Wikipedia page, shortly after they got married, Nebel said that he noted that Jones exhibited violent mood swings and at times. She seemed to display a different personality. Her husband called this the voice, a look, a few moments of bitchiness. The voice usually vanished rather quickly.
We all get the voice.
Yeah,
let's be real.
I mean, the voice exists. I'm not mad at the voice. The change was so drastic from Jones' usually pleasant demeanor that Nebel was concerned and a little distressed. Colin Bennett wrote, a few weeks after their marriage, Candy did tell her husband that she'd worked for the FBI for some time, adding mysteriously that she might have to go out of town on occasion without giving a reason. This left Nebel wondering whether there was a connection between the quote-unquote other personality within Candy and the strange trips that she said she made for the FBI. Nebel began hypnotizing her and then uncovered an alternate personality named Arlene. Go ahead. What do you
It's
got?
just funny. It's like, there seems to be a problem here. Look at my watch.
Yeah.
Like, hello, is anybody else there? It's just
What's
so,
your
like,
name? Arlene.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
so fast.
Well, I think I'm kind of giving you the meat
I
and
know,
potatoes
I know,
of it.
Yeah.
So under hypnosis, Jones related a lengthy, elaborate account of her being trained in a CIA mind control program that often took place at West Coast colleges and universities. Also, just a fun sidebar, Ted Krzyzewski, the Unabomber, was also alleged to have been...
Mike is like, hey, bro.
Stop. Ted Kaczynski was alleged to have been part of the CIA mind control programs too, and he also attended a West Coast university. So
Where'd he go? Stanford?
Berkeley. I know he taught at Berkeley. I think he went to Stanford.
I was just guessing.
My brain, no good. My brain goo doesn't remember so much.
I'll look that up for you.
Yeah. But he taught at Berkeley. I'm pretty sure. So Jones and Neville eventually recorded hundreds of hours of hypnotic sessions. Jones said she had some conscious memories of her own involvement in the mind control program. Beginning in 1960, she said when she was a USO acquaintance, an unnamed retired Army general asked to use her modeling school as a mailing address to receive some letters and some packages, and so she agreed out of a sense of patriotism. Eventually, Jones said she was asked to deliver a letter to Oakland on a business trip that she had scheduled. Again, Jones reported that she agreed, and she was surprised to discover the letter was delivered to the same Dr. Jensen who'd treated her in the Philippines nearly 2 decades earlier. Jones said that Jensen and his associate, Dr. Marshall Berger, a fake name, offered hefty amounts of cash if she was willing to engage in further plans. In their earlier meetings, Jensen had noted that Jones was the ideal subject for hypnosis. Jones agreed and said because her modeling school was faltering and she wanted to keep her sons in their costly private school, she was like, yeah, fine, like, let's do it. Whatever's going to keep me in this. During the hypnosis sessions, an alternate personality called Arlene was reportedly groomed by Jensen so that Jones would have no memory of Arlene's activities. Jones allegedly made trips to locations as far away as Taiwan while hypnotized, and she claimed that she was subjected to painful torture in order to test the effectiveness of the alternate personality. She writes that she would be a messenger for the agency in conjunction with normal business trips. So, anytime she's got something scheduled, she'd skedaddle out of town, and they'd be like, yeah, we'll make that work. It's a move very similar to what we learned about the mafia and their bagmen, like with the celebrities and stuff, using a model celebrity to move stuff around the country unnoticed. She allegedly had a passport with the name Arlene Grant that had her in a dark wig and dark makeup, while she had no memory of posing for a passport photo in a dark wig or makeup.
Interesting.
There was also a letter that she had written to her attorney. William Williams is his name. It's a pretty solid name.
Yeah,
Like
Wilson and William Williams start a band. Wilson and Williams.
She wrote him a letter to cover herself in case she died or disappeared suddenly or under unusual circumstances. She told him she was not at liberty to reveal exactly what she was involved in, but she was involved in something.
By the way, Ted Kaczynski, Harvard and the University of Michigan.
Bang.
8 years in school. 4 at Harvard, 4 at University of Michigan.
And taught it.
Go Wolverines.
Yeah.
Taught at Berkeley.
I just looked Ohio State University. In 1965, a young lady named Karen, who was 13, she was molested by her neighbor and became very withdrawn. As a result, she became depressed and was repeatedly admitted to a mental hospital. Since it was against her will, she was denied contact with her family or anyone outside the hospital, and she was told that she was denied contact for her own good. That, it's safer this way if you don't get to talk to anybody.
Is it?
That's what I mean. Like, I feel fucking gross reading that, but yeah, that's what they told her. She was found there by the CIA, specifically looking for children ages 13 to 18 who were disassociative. It took almost 30 years of her suing for her to get her own medical records. When she got her medical records,
seems like you should probably have access to those.
Yeah,
I just guess.
You would think. When she got her medical records, she found she was kept in isolation from February 1971 until June, naked with her feet and hands bound, like tied behind her back and her feet lashed together. She on the thing, it's on the chart. It said full cam and ties, which she said means full straitjacket and bindings.
Also, just gosh, so much fun.
Yeah, they administered drugs as well as electroshock therapy. On electroshock therapy from the Johns Hopkins website, because I was like, okay, what's a proper electroshock therapy procedure? I mean, I've seen
it's like still done.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've seen The Simpsons, like bzz,
Yeah.
bzz,
Mr. Simpson.
yeah, please. So I want to know, like, what's the proper procedure for it? So I found this from the Johns Hopkins website. It said before ECT patients,
I used to smoke weed with Johnny Hopkins.
me, Johnny Hopkins, and Sloan Kettering used to blaze that shit up all the time. Before ECT, patients are asked to not eat or drink from midnight the night before treatment.
Oh, like a mogwai.
Sure.
The gremlins, gizmos.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Don't feed them after midnight.
Yeah. It took me a second. Like I told you, my brain goo not so good.
I just watched it the other night.
Did you see that sweet thing that Paul sent?
Yep.
That was awesome.
It was awesome.
During the procedure, the patient receives short-acting anesthetic agent, which puts the patient to sleep for approximately 5 to 10 minutes.
It's a very short-lasting anesthesia.
A muscle relaxant is also used during the procedure to stop the patient's muscles from moving during the seizure. Cardiac monitoring pads are placed on the patient's chest to check on the cardiac status during and after the procedure, and 4 electrodes are placed on specific areas of the patient's head. 2 of these electrodes are used for monitoring brain waves, and the other 2 for delivering a short, controlled set of electrical pulses for a few seconds. The electrical pulses must produce a generalized seizure to be effective. Because patients are under anesthesia and have taken muscle relaxants, they neither convulse nor feel the current. Patients awaken from 5 to 10 minutes after the end of the treatment. Patients are then moved to the recovery room and remain there until their blood pressure, pulse, and breathing return to their pre-treatment levels.
Whoa.
Usually this takes about 20 to 25 minutes. Patients who are given ECT on an outpatient basis must have someone drive them home and after the procedure and stay with them until they go to sleep at night. People should not drive in the 24 hours following an ECT treatment.
Yo, fuck you, Hollywood. It doesn't look anything like what you've portrayed to us all this time.
Right?
Nobody's like,
well, Karen was.
oh, okay. Well, didn't you say like John Hopkins says?
Yeah, that's the proper way to do
Right,
it
like,
according
yeah,
to Johns
yeah,
Hopkins
okay.
University. So she showed the camera her sheet, and it said it showed like one column of the number of shocks that were administered, and then another column showing how long the shocks were.
It just said too many.
Her numbers down her column were 30, 30, 35, 35, 35.
And what did you just say? Like 1 to 3?
It says...
Or it didn't have a number, right? Just a few short bursts.
A few seconds. A few seconds in a short burst, enough to induce a seizure, and then stop. And so they were each of those, the 30, 30, 35, 35, 35, were held for 40 seconds each. 40 seconds each.
So 45 seconds. So they were in there zapping her for 20 minutes. Like she was being shocked for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like 30-second shock. All right, 44 more, guys.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
And she said in one treatment they weren't able to produce the seizure, so they restarted. By the end they couldn't get her to seize up, so they were like, we're just gonna take this back to the beginning.
I've gotten my mind so off thinking of who is she again?
She was a young lady who was molested by her neighbor, and as a result she became really withdrawn, and her parents didn't know what to do with her, so they admitted her to a hospital.
Okay.
And the CIA found her in this Canadian hospital.
I got so lost in electroshock treatment.
Yeah. Oh man. So in addition to the shock treatment,
yeah.
In addition to the shock treatment, she was given LSD as well as Metrazole, which is a respiratory stimulant that will, like, according to all medical records of Metrazole, likely cause seizures.
So they were like giving her as much seizure-inducing shit.
Right. And what they were trying to do was break the mind apart. But she said that she mentioned that the Metrazole was according to the CIA, because she asked one of the guys, what's going on? And they said, this is going to be very painful, both physically and mentally. Russians use it in the gulag, and a POW will say or do anything to avoid a second dose.
Wow.
That's what they told her about the drug that they were about to give her.
Okay, so can you hold on to these paddles, please?
Yeah, give me just a second. I'll be right back. So about this time, she's like 19. So stuff's been going on for years.
Yeah.
She went in when she was 13. She's 19 now, roughly. She took 1,800 milligrams of this stuff at once. Looking through a list of safe doses, like now, because they still use it. A lot of these drugs are still in use, but they're much more regulated and restricted and stuff. Nothing over 500 milligrams was recommended. And so she took over 3 times that.
Yeah.
Just a rundown of some of the side effects of this drug: appetite loss, yeast infection, diarrhea, dizziness, headache, nausea, vomiting, loss of control of bodily movements, dark urine, disulfiram type reaction with ethanol, furry tongue, hypersensitivity, low white blood cell count, metallic taste, neuropathy, pancreatitis, seizures, blood clot,
fuck?
dry mouth, brain disease, aseptic meningitis, optic neuropathy,
So that-
Stevens-Johnson syndrome, toxic epidermal necrolysis, and decreased libido.
So that whole like, yo, this experiment can't hurt more people than it saves. How is that?
Because it's a respiratory stimulant now. It's like that, but see, that's what I'm saying. They're giving her these drugs to figure out what it's gonna do. They don't know. We don't know. This is how we know what these drugs do now.
Fucking stupid.
It's terrible, dude. One night, on the night she was given this drug, she said she could hear men's voices in her head, and she tried to set herself on fire, like according to the records, to make it just all go away.
Oh, okay, like they didn't say set yourself on fire. It was just like whatever they were saying was like,
She
I need
just-
this fucking out of my head.
She just said
She's self
in
self-immolated?
in her interview, she just said that night I could hear men's voices inside my head, and I tried to set myself on fire. And I'm like, I've got more questions. Like, I need to know more.
Jeez.
She also has a scar behind her right ear that could have something to do with electric implants that were tested during the same time. They were working on implants that would be able to remotely control the body, less of like an audio receiver and more like an antenna on an RC car. They implanted electrodes in the brain and the muscles of a bull, and then attached an antenna to the electrodes on the back of the head. That they could pretty much send an electric pattern that would stop the bull in its tracks, essentially locking them up and then causing it to turn away. And that I actually have a video of.
Oh.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain.
Yeah. So they're using the monkey as the antenna now.
Wild.
But yeah, that guy was able to effectively stop a bull in its tracks while it's charging.
Yeah, that was fucking wild.
And if you can set somebody up with that kind of, with a receiver like that, and then have another person set up maybe as a transmitter, then it's a lot like the movie Gamer with Gerard Butler.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Where he's
Yeah.
they're like prisoners are the.
Exactly. So again, remember the name Ewan Cameron from earlier?
Yeah.
Attaboy, I knew you would.
I remember Ewan, not Cameron.
But
and there's something shitbag White later, I think.
Oh yeah. So Ewan Cameron was a piece of shit. He was the head of the World Psychiatric Association at the time. He was also the president. He was also present at the Nuremberg trials where he met a man named Rudolf Hess, who was a Nazi scientist. Excuse me. Cameron was recruited in 1961 to help with these experiments. He created what's called depatterning and psychic driving. And the idea behind all this was to compartmentalize the mind. He wanted to induce schizophrenia and select amnesia, as well as remove independent thought and free will. So,
So did like Leonard Lake and Charles Ng.
And they were also
They just weren't funded by grants.
Yeah, they basically. I mean, that's the difference. That is the difference. So they did the insane electroshock therapy like they did with Karen. It wasn't designed to treat a specific condition. It was designed to erase the memory and their personality. For this part of the process was called depatterning. From this From there, they'd be placed in medically induced comas that would leave people in a vegetative state for weeks at a time. Then flood their bodies with an IV of amphetamines, which would raise their heart rate to alarming levels, and then flood the body with barbiturates, which would slow it down to alarming levels. Swinging wildly back and forth between the two is kind of what put people in this vegetative state.
That's like what Angels of Death do a lot too. Like the nurses who kill people will like bring them up really high and then like get them really down. Like they start like, oh, the heart beats like 7 times a minute, and then they bring it up to 180, and then like that's the power they get from it. It's like hearing the heart stop. And like I know more than one.
Did you
very similar?
Did you see that Humans Are Metal post earlier about the lady that was in a car wreck, and then she walked 2 miles to her friend's house, where she collapsed before she made it to like 15 feet from the front door, and she stayed outside all night. And
the lady who got frozen.
Yeah, it was negative 22 degrees, and she froze. Her heart was beating 12 times per minute, and then she got brought back fully with no.
Yeah, they just like put electric blankets on her. Mm-hmm. Wild shit, man.
How much of that do you think stems from stuff like this, though, like putting people at the verge of death and bringing them back?
I mean, like,
because I can tell you now, in World War II, the Nazis were taking prisoners and freezing them, and then bringing them back from the verge of death, like
what you do with a bee.
Kind of, except they were obviously doing worse shit, but they were they were forcing them to drink seawater to see how much of it you could take before it killed you, and things like that.
That'd be the worst.
Yeah, well, there was when they were
died of salt poisoning.
When they were doing that, they had an idea. They were like, okay, we want to see if we can make this seawater potable. So should you crash in the ocean, you can survive. Mm-hmm. And the guy was like, they had 2 guys working on it. One guy was like, I came up with this powder that you pour in the water, like you scoop it up in your helmet, you pour this powder in, mix it around with your finger,
like drops all the dirt to the bottom.
It gets rid of the salt completely, and it's drinkable.
Yeah.
And the other guy was like, I have a pill that you have to dry swallow because you can't take it with seawater. And then it'll make it so you can drink seawater. And they were like, we're going with the pill. They tested them both. The pill didn't work. And they were like, well, what are we going to do with all these pills? How many do we have left? 1,000? You guys drink seawater. And they would burn through the supply like that. So, it's at a certain point, it's not about experimenting anymore.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah, so when they're doing the de-patterning and stuff, they're swinging people wildly back and forth with the amphetamines and the barbiturates and stuff. Then he's they keep people in the vegetative state, and then while they're out, he'd bombard them with strobe lights. So you know how like when your eyes are closed, you can still see bright lights hitting you. You can totally see them.
I sleep with my eyes covered most nights.
I generally fall asleep like this a lot.
Yeah, I do a blanket over the head to right here most nights. Like my mouth, I can't have my mouth covered while I sleep.
I like to sleep. I've been sleeping in a sweatshirt lately.
I was gonna say,
and throwing the hood.
Hoodie season is nice for that very reason. I can't do a sleep mask though; it bugs me.
Yeah, totally.
But I can. Yes, I get you. I like to have my eyes covered when I sleep. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Sometimes I'll even leave the beanie on and just pull it down a little bit.
Go. The cowboy nap.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, he'd hit him with strobe lights, and then they used tape recordings that were fixed to speakers that were underneath the pillow, like in the bed, and they'd blast you with the same message just over and over and over again for like 16 hours a day, is what they have officially on record. But at one point they were like, what happens if we do it for 64 hours straight? You know what I mean? So you're just
one way to find out.
Yeah, you're just in there getting your hourly injections of amphetamines and barbiturates, and then to keep you in this vegetative coma while they're blasting you with strobe lights and then pumping you with a message that says you are not who you think you are. Now you are somebody else. You are completely.
You think you're safe right now?
How am I gonna get my car out? So yeah, that's a thing that was called de-patterning or psychic driving. In 1973, the director of the CIA, Richard Helms, ordered all the documents related to Operation MKUltra to be destroyed. Somebody found out, and he was like, holy shit, guys, we got to take care of this. Everybody, grab your paperwork, burn it.
Yeah.
Burn it.
Here's the shredder, here's some matches, make that shit happen.
And that is exactly what happened. They burned everything. Not shredded so it could be forensically pieced back together burned. Gone. Thanks to a clerical error in 1975, roughly 20,000 documents survived. They were mislabeled as financial records.
They're like, oh, we actually had great financials. You can leave those.
I mean, they just got stacked in the wrong spot. Like somebody moved them to the wrong thing, and this whole closet full of MKUltra information was found. So the stuff that we've got here is what's come from those 20,000 documents, and I know there's more. There's tons more, but the President Ford put together a commission, the United States President's Commission on the CIA Activities within the United States, which rolls right off the tongue, but they called it the Rockefeller Commission for short because Nelson Rockefeller was the chair.
Switch lights to red, please.
Ooh, red lights. Bum, 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 bum. How's that? Red enough for you? So yeah, they also took a look at the JFK assassination as well as E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis or Frank Fiorini being in Dallas at the same time. They were like, this is all going to be part of this CIA overstepping their shit. Overall, they found out about 149 programs that were financed and verified. So we talked about MKUltra. We talked about Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird. We talked about Project Chatter. They uncovered 149 different projects that were being worked on at that time.
That's a lot.
That's so fucking many. Yeah, the red makes my eyes look nuts. That's good. So I do want to say I'm just about finished with all this stuff. I've only got a little bit more. I tried to power through a lot of it because fucking it's a lot.
It's a lot. For sure it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah.
But I tried to move through it pretty well, but so I'll leave it with the a little bit more of the known unknown of MKUltra. The disinformation main sponsors of the program were the CIA. They were allegedly at the forefront of the intelligence game, using quote unquote the most advanced techniques, and we're training our boys to be able to withstand it. But you can't have a very successful spy ring if everyone and their mother's talking about it. This could cause problems. So precautions had to be taken. Secrecy and security of the project was of the utmost importance. The CIA did a really good job focusing on their disinformation. They coined the term conspiracy theorist in an attempt to make people look crazy or untrustworthy. It was a tactic they developed and used under what was known as Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird began in the early 1950s. It was a propaganda program set to control the information given to the public in order to influence a certain outcome. The CIA knew that they couldn't wage war without support. They also knew they couldn't very well step into another full-blown war this soon after a Second World War, while still being kind of at war with Korea. Or just before that, that meant they had to go about it in a very different way. So the CIA controlled the media in such a way that someone who, in a way that some who weren't necessarily involved, or even aware that they were being used, were all complicit in all this stuff. And it was just a massive disinformation scheme. I fucking know this shit sounds ridiculous and crazy. So, bear with me. The agency would have a few plants in the media, newspapers, radio, and in years later, television, movies, and online, who would get the scoop on stories. Then they received these tips, and as a result, would publish stories that were oftentimes partially true, sometimes completely true, and sometimes completely false. The scoops were then pushed out to the mass public, and the CIA was able to control the political climate. While we're not supposed to be in a war at all during this time, we had stoked enough fires here at home with so much propaganda that we could have sailed to Cuba, waged war, and then people back home would have just cheered. Like, we had people so fired up. We even did, like, with the Bay of Pigs. We tried to invade Cuba, and JFK was like, fucking no.
Yeah.
Like,
we're not doing that.
Yeah, not only no, I'm going to pull back on the air support, and that led to a bunch of guys there getting boned and being pissed off, and that partially could have been what killed JFK. Go back and watch the JFK episode.
It's a doozy.
So it feels a lot like this one. Same kind of energy. So let's see. The agency used the media to steer the public in the direction that best benefited the agency and those who depended on it for a paycheck. Operation Mockingbird was a large factor in the Red Scare that had people calling on neighbors, family, and friends reporting to the FBI for being communists. Just as an aside, one of the Nazi scientists that was brought over during Operation Paperclip and who was sent back to stand trial for war crimes, called the SS on a colleague for his failing to give him the Nazi salute. Like these guys, during World War II, like he was like a contemporary of this guy. They were both Nazi officers,
Right.
and he walked past him and he gave him the Nazi salute, and the other guy didn't return it, like just because they were like literally just standing there shooting the shit.
Yeah. In America now, you were saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
Sorry.
back during World War II.
Okay.
He walked, but like nobody else is around. Nobody else would have seen it. He could have just walked by and like high-fived him, and he stopped and he gave him the Nazi salute. And the guy didn't give him the salute back, and he went and reported to the higher-up officials that this guy's not giving the Nazi salute. He's not an actual Nazi. We need to get rid of him. And we brought him over. We were like, this guy is good for science.
Old snitchy McSnitch face.
He's good for science. So we brought him over. That's just crazy. Not saying, they're identical to the Red Scare or anything like that, but it's just a similar thought. It's also kind of a fun coincidence that we happen to have a fucking shit ton of Nazi scientists working for us. It's almost like they didn't retire, but just kind of got traded to a new team. Did you keep doing the same thing you're doing?
The PGA, and then you got the senior tour, buddy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Retirement golf.
A lot of these guys, that's where they went to just retire with government pensions, taking taxpayer dollars to just live out the rest of their lives.
Great.
Yeah. So the war machine's a real thing. It's profitable because industry is booming. World War II helped pull the United States out of the Great Depression. I know it was just more than just World War II, but it helped. Alphabet soup can also be used. You also use this as a reason to to further their reach under the guise of national security. Now that everybody's afraid of a common enemy, we can do something about it. We can increase the defense budget. We can increase the intelligence budget. We can hide money away and put certain riders and bills that are hastily passed in a reactionary manner. And, basically just do things to make themselves stronger. Like we talked about, when you have power, the only thing you're afraid of is losing power.
Right.
So you may stack the deck in your favor as often as possible to make sure that doesn't happen. Methods like this were used to secure funding and to continue research. The public couldn't know about the projects, so disinformation was spread like wildfire. When confronted, people had been killed or subjected to the experiments and torture. The pursuit of secrecy reached its boiling point when people were part of these experiments were suing the government for psychological, physical, and emotional trauma. So people actually have sued the government for these things. I had some interviews, or not interviews, but testimonies that I was going to show, but I'm not going to go into it. It's sad shit, man.
Yeah.
You can totally look it up. It's on YouTube. You can find it.
On the YouTubes.
The pursuit of secrecy, when the government began to look into this, the director of the CIA ordered the documents destroyed. And in 1973, all information pertaining to Project MKUltra was burned and shredded, taking all the evidence that the programs existed, except for the 20,000 documents that were found misfiled as financial records. These documents and witness testimony are the only thing that we have that didn't fall victim to the propaganda machine that was the CIA and Operation Mockingbird. So not only were they committing war crimes and lying about it, it's just a bad look for the CIA. If you just if you think things like Operation Mockingbird aren't happening, look around you and kind of think about the things that you're watching. For example, you see shows like Stranger Things, where there actually were children locked in sensory deprivation cells, and they were hooked up to electrodes, and they were forced to try and astral project, and they were dosed with drugs, and they were experimented on and stuff like that. That shit actually happened. Yeah. But you put it in the context of a fun show with D&D and Upside Down and all this stuff. Well, maybe that shit's not happening. But within that science fiction bubble is a grain of truth. And that grain of truth is that, yes, the government actually was experimenting on children in the same way that 11 was being experimented on. I can't say whether they made telekinetic children or not.
Why can't you?
Because I haven't seen the paperwork. I haven't met one.
Come on.
I mean, okay, sure, they did. Yuri Gagarin, fucking...
Yuri
Geller, I mean, yeah. And what's his name? What was the guy with the really dope name? From Astral Projection.
I remember nothing.
Shit, I can't remember his name. Ingo Swann.
Oh, yeah, Ingo Swann.
Ingo Swann's a badass name. So, watching stuff like that, it's, they're normalizing it so that when somebody's like, oh, dude, the CIA locks children in sensory deprivation cells, they you could be like, no, you just watch too much Stranger Things. You're crazy. Get out of here. And if that doesn't silence somebody, they usually go after them with manufactured schizophrenia by using drugs or techniques like gang stalking, which is a targeted and concentrated effort to ruin the life and the credibility of a person.
Watch last week's episode, thorough explanation of gang stalking.
Yeah, we talked a lot about gang stalking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the more ludicrous the truth, the less likely we will be to believe it. The more they'll be able to get away with. So it's evident with the passing of the Patriot Act. We're so afraid to be victims of terrorism that we signed away rights to privacy. The war on terrorism that we've been fighting seems an awful lot like the war on communism. Seems like an awful lot like the war on Nazis, which, I mean, again, the Nazis were an actual threat.
And I want my Nazi scalps.
Yeah, they were an actual threat. I'm not saying they weren't, but to fight the idea like that was just another excuse to push us into war. Fighting communism was just another excuse to push us into war. Fighting terrorism is just another excuse to push us into war. So how do you fight an idea? With propaganda. Like,
with a worse idea.
Hold on, man. You got to give me time to answer. So, if you're not doing any, people always say, if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. You completely fucking missed the point of all of this stuff and that it all happens without your consent. Also, fuck you. I like my privacy. So that's it. That's the end of Project MKUltra. I tried to tie a nice little bow on it. Thank you, Jesse, for being here. I appreciate you, dog.
Yeah, boy.
You're the man. Again, let people know where they can find you.
Cromulent Jesse on Instagram and Twitter and Twitch.
And cromulentjesse.com, no?
Perfectlycromulentjesse.com.
Perfectly cromulent
That'll get you everywhere. But yeah, I mean, if you just type in Cromulent Jesse on those 3 platforms, and I'll be at the top. That's me.
Yeah, that's him.
Yay!
I don't know. I doubt Paul's here. Congratulations to him on bringing small life into this world.
I dropped them off dinner tonight, and he's a beautiful young man.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, the baby's cute, too.
Yes. I love it. I'm glad. I'm happy for him. Jesse, thank you for moderating the chat. I appreciate
100%.
you. Thank you, everybody, for who participated in the chat. You guys are all beautiful people. I have stickers, like I said. I'm going to, to the people who went on hellagregLIVE.com and solved the puzzle, I'm going to send your stickers out. I've got all your names written down right there. Oop, can't see me. Written down right there. So I'm going to be sending everything out. I think I still have 1 spot left if anybody wants to get a free sticker pack. Otherwise,
go solve that puzzle.
Yeah. And then, if you want stickers, maybe I'll sell you some. Reach out. I'm your sticker man.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and raid another channel. Feel free to stick it out, watch them, say hi to all those people. Anything else you want to add, Jesse?
Nope. I don't really see anybody on the Super Raid side besides Creator Vision.
Yeah, that's where everybody's going. You're going to watch some animals, and I hope you like it.
There's a kitty on screen right now.
Yes.
I've seen 2 possums come up and peace out when they saw Mr. Gato.
Well, then I will see you guys next Tuesday.
Bing, bang, boom. See you next Tuesday.
Don't say see you next Tuesday.